Thanks very much.
Grant, no problem. That's all fine, Scott. Thank you, Scott, and thanks, David. And I'll just talk quickly. I'm just going to share some slides at the moment, really just to say, because we're relatively short of time, I'm going to just do a very brief PowerPoint presentation just to give you a feel about the support programme that we have, and then just open up for questions. So I know we're due to finish about 20 past. If it does go on a little bit longer, I need to jump off, but my colleague Judith, who's here, who helps to run the programme, will be able to answer any questions. So don't worry if we don't need to finish sharp particularly. We can carry on a little bit if necessary. So I'll just share those and then open up for questions. And hopefully you can see these slides all right. If anybody, does that seem, the nods and smiles, that working okay? Great, okay. Okay, so we have this project or programme called Accelerate. Now I just wanted to give you a feel about where this came from. So it's really about filling a gap in the support programme in Scotland. So the Scottish Government funds a number of different programmes and part funds others. So there is, for organisations that are social enterprises, so they're trading social enterprises running cafes or cinemas or whatever it might be, they can get support from this programme here called Just Enterprise. If they're a new entrepreneur, so a single person, they can get support from First Port. But where we saw a gap was organisations that were existing organisations, community-based organisations, charities, community groups, churches are included in all of that. So registered charities, doesn't have to be people who are not registered charities. So all those active community groups who are struggling, partly because of COVID, not only, but partly because of COVID, to sustain what they're doing, their frontline services. There was no support mechanism out there. So we discussed that with the Scottish Government, and we've put some of the funding in ourselves, and we've had a grant from the Scottish Government to run this programme called Accelerate. And really what it's about is supporting third sector organisations to become more sustainable in whatever way that means to them. So it's not about joining a programme that's like week 6, week 2, week 4, we have to do certain things. It is actually just free support from our consultants that we help people to think through their sustainability. To be eligible for the programme, organisations have to be not trading, and I'll come to that in the next slide. They do have to be based in Scotland. They have to be a constituted organisation, or if there's a group of people that are a loose group of people doing something but they're not yet constituted, then we can work with that. They need to be what's called asset locks, which means profit can't be distributed to other people. So some community interest companies and social enterprises distribute some of their profit, so we can't work with those. And there has to be some commitment to change. So this is about organisations getting involved in their own change and at that change programme. So it's not about us disappearing for 3 months and coming back with a plan. It's about a joint bit of work where we work alongside the groups we work with as a team. So I said I would get back to what's non-trading. So we're really looking at what we'd view as trading as an organisation, including churches, is a very much a commercial social enterprise. So if they run a cafe that's open to the public, that's got prices, that's got menus, that's got paid staff, then that's a social business, a social enterprise. And there's the Just Enterprise support programme that we can tap you into. We're also delivery partners for that. So whoever comes, we will find a way for you to get support. But if there's a trading like that, then that's counted as trading. However, if you're at a church and you're doing your normal day-to-day activity, free will offerings, but there's things like spring fairs, coffee mornings, donations, maybe a Christmas pantomime where you'll sell tickets for £5, those kind of things, those wouldn't be viewed, that low-level trading, if you like, wouldn't be viewed as ineligible. So we're looking really at that much more commercial side of things and we work very closely with Just Enterprise. So if you're not sure, the best thing is to put a support request in and let us worry about that, and we can decide where it best fits. So I'm not going to read all of these out, but in terms of the services that we provide, we're really ultimately there to help organisations, churches in this case, to help through their financial sustainability. So it could be ideas generation if people don't have an idea, they don't know what to do. It could be about business planning if they do have an idea and they've maybe worked it up a little bit, but they need some thinking. How do they price it? What do they do with that? It could be help with funding and fundraising if organisations churches maybe have never tapped into grants before and there are grant opportunities. It could be about governance, maybe some legal structure work. So it could be whatever the need is, really whatever the need is. And we're happy to just meet people where they are, and we'll work with people in terms of each community being different. Now, I'll send these to David, who can circulate them later. I won't read this out, but the process is really very straightforward. So there's an online inquiry form, and there's a link to that in my final slide. So I literally will take you 2 minutes. It's just your name, contact details, and a couple of sentences about what support you think you would need. If we think that's eligible for us for our programme, then a health check would be undertaken, and that health check is really about getting to know you. It will be asked things about who's on the session, what ideas you've got, how many volunteers you have, you know, those kind of things, how your finances are looking. So we'll spend that time getting to know you as an organisation, and out of that we'll agree between the church and ourselves, what support package is required. So what do we need to do? Ideas generation because we haven't got an idea, or do we need to develop something? Is it finance that's the issue? So that health check will lead to a work plan, an action plan, and we'll agree that with you. And then it's a case of delivering that. We'll work alongside you. The average duration we're saying is around about 6 days, but some could be 1 or 2, some could be a little bit more, but that gives you a feel about what the average duration is. But that'll be worked out individually based on each organisation. And then once we're done, we're quite passionate about developing mentoring and aftercare. So we'll do that piece of work with you, but we don't want to then just abandon organisations. Now, we have limited capacity. We can't have days and days and days of mentoring, but we really want to keep an eye on all of the people we're supporting by phone and email and popping in if we're in the area, so that if we do, so just to take one example, maybe someone does voluntary film nights and we want to turn that into much more, generate some more money from that and sell food maybe, I don't know. So we'll start developing that idea, thinking it through, you then launch it. What we want to do is to be there 6 weeks' time when you're in the middle of doing it and it's been amazing or it's been a disaster, and you can phone us and get that mentoring and aftercare support. So we're there right through for the 3 years of the programme, and so we really want to build that relationship with organisations and link you with other groups doing similar things as well, so you become part of that peer support as well as the support that you can have from ourselves. So that's the crux of the programme. There is an expression of interest, that's the link there. Don't worry too much about it, David can circulate the slides, but also it's really easy to find. We are Community Enterprise, so if you go online, just Google Community Enterprise, you'll be able to find it. We're the first one that comes up. Just go to Get Support and you'll find the Accelerate link really easily after that, so it's really easy to find. So I'll stop sharing there. Hopefully that gives you a feel about the programme, and just open up for some questions. So David, you can maybe help me keep an eye on things, those digital hands, in case I miss anybody. Fergus, I think you're the first person I saw.
Now, we're taking questions through the chat.
Oh, so right, okay. No, fair enough, Dave. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
sorry,
that's all right.
That.
No, so if anyone has a question, please do put it in the chat and then we'll pick them out and share them with our speaker. So as a first question, someone from Church of Scotland but in Corby, England. So there's a question as to whether they are eligible.
And yeah, in terms of, as I said, the projects need to be based in Scotland because this is funded by the Scottish Government. So if an organisation is based in England, it's possible to get some support, but the bulk of the beneficiaries, the majority of their beneficiaries need to be in Scotland. So it's a Scottish-based programme because it's funded by the Scottish Government. So we do need to do that. But I would strongly encourage people, and we have had this, people from out with Scotland, just please get in touch and we'll see if we can find some support elsewhere. So I don't want to be turning anybody away, but this programme in particular is based for people in Scotland.
Scott, do you want to take up Alistair Barton's question?
Sure, we'll do. Alistair asks, I'm just trying to find it here. Where's it gone? I've lost it from my script here. If you've got it, David, that'd be grand. Apologies, everyone. The joys of virtual meetings.
Almost there, sorry.
Shall I take another question and we'll find out?
I can quickly see, and I can look see just a question here for somebody saying that it's a 3-year program. No, there isn't a time limit. What I would say is it's a 3-year program that we have. So no, you can have time to think through an idea. Absolutely. It's probably worth saying though that we are delivering year 1 in 6 months. So absolutely apply when you're ready. But really, that's to say there is more capacity this year than there will be in future years, because we've got quite a lot of days to deliver between October and the end of March. So if you feel that your needs are quite hefty, maybe I would encourage you to apply early, because it's likely to be more capacity at the moment than there is as the programme develops.
Great, thank you for that. I'm looking at Alistair's question here, and he sent, sorry, the following question is, here we are, Douglas McHugh. We're looking to set up a men's shed using man's outbuildings. Would that qualify?
Potentially. I mean, I think the crux of this is it's about the sustainability of the church. If you're the church organisation, so it's about financial sustainability. It's not particularly about developing services. So we had a discussion with somebody who wanted to develop a dementia service. Lovely, really great, and was looking for some support with that. Well, absolutely, we can provide some support through other programmes, but not so easily this one. So that was not going to generate any income or any benefit to the group. But for example, you know, if you said you were developing a men's shed, it was going to bring people in, that was going to bring people into the church, it was going to increase your free will offering, then yes, potentially. So at some point, we are going to be asked by our funders, well, that organisation had a £10,000 turnover, next year, what's their turnover? It needs to be 12 or 13,000. So we need to be supporting people with their financial sustainability. So the crux of this is about organisations that have some concerns because their income's going down and their expenditure's going up. So this is about addressing that problem. So it's not about providing services, but about addressing that financial sustainability issue. So I suppose there's no right or wrong answer or yes or no, but that's to have in the back of your mind that it is about, ultimately about your financial sustainability.
Great. No, thanks, Douglas. And I think this leads us nicely into Martin's question, where he asks, can you give an example of a specific project that you've supported through Accelerate? And for him, this is to find out what kind of activities that would be eligible, how large or small are these projects?
Well, I mean, I think ultimately anything that's going to help with financial sustainability would be eligible. So just to give you a couple of examples, maybe one very different from another, a family support organisation up in the northeast supported. They have one funder, the local authority funds them, and they're concerned that grant will disappear because if it's unsuccessful, the entire organisation goes. So it's very vulnerable. All their eggs are in one basket. But because of the work they do with quite disadvantaged families, they have potential to opportunities with a variety of grant funds. So with them, we've been supporting them to look. We did a funding strategy to open their eyes to all these different funding opportunities. And I've helped them with 3 very specific funding opportunities to develop a new rural service. So that's going to diversify their funding mix. It's going to make them a bit more sustainable. Another black and ethnic minority group I'm working with locally, again, fully funded by grants and donations, but they had been thinking around procurement and they got an email from a local authority shortlisting them for a quick quote, it's called, on Public Contracts Scotland. So they had an opportunity to tender for a service around supporting black and ethnic minority young people getting involved in service delivery. So they'd never done that before. They'd never registered on Public Contracts Scotland. They didn't know the paperwork. They didn't know the process. So we see it's quite frightening. It's quite an unusual process. So we supported them through that process and helped them to put the tender together, which they submitted. Now, I'm pretty certain they won't win that tender, but it's a first one. But that learning process of getting onto procurement was something that was really important to them. And then maybe just thirdly, an organisation, a walled garden, who are developing out their walled garden just now, all on an entirely voluntary basis, but they want to think about selling jams and chutneys from the garden. And how do they do that? How do they brand it? How do they health and safety? How do they price it? How do they market it? So those kind of things. So that hopefully gives you some examples of the work that we're doing. No,
and it's tremendous. And I think the word support rings through my ears here, and that often when we start to do new things, we're not sure which way to turn. And the beauty of working with Accelerate is that you can support churches through this process of really doing things outside the box, perhaps, from what they've done before. So
Can I jump in?
Sorry, I'm just wondering. Sorry, David. I just wondered if I can pick up one, if you don't mind. Sorry to interrupt, but just it's probably quite fundamentally important that people hear. And then, sorry, I'll jump back to you. Just I've noticed that somebody's asked what's the average grant available and the range of funding. It's important to say there is no money. So if people are, we're going to watch people disappear. We'll go from 120 to 4 people maybe. This is not a grant. It's a support programme. So we're there to support you, potentially to find grants and to write funding bids. But just so that you're aware, this is not a grant programme. So thank you for asking that question. It's probably just important at this point just to make that clear. We can certainly support people's sustainability, but there isn't a grant you can tap into. Sorry,
that's
David.
The question. No, that's the question I was going to highlight, because I've seen several people asking the same question: is there funding available for XYZ? Well, there isn't funding available. As Douglas has outlined, they can help people to find funding by finding the right sort of funding sources and by supporting applications for funding.
Thank you, David. What's interesting is, of course, is the provision of free services. You know, in itself is worth a lot of money. So the advice that is being garnered by the church from Accelerate is really valuable in its own right. Just to jump into the next question, Douglas, if it's okay, will Oscar require us to switch from a charity to a SKIO if we become more entrepreneurial?
Not necessarily, and I would say that's probably can be complicated, and it depends on your circumstances. But no, you certainly wouldn't have to do that. There'd be no reason at all to do that as a SKIO. But I mean, I won't answer the question with a session. But you know, charitable purpose trading is perfectly allowable under your normal charity or charity rules. If we end up supporting something that's non-charitable purpose trading, then we need to think about other legal ways to do it. But you don't need to restructure yourselves. It's much more about finding additional routes to do that. So if you're concerned about that, then that's something that we can help to think through. But it's quite complex and it depends on your own circumstances. So certainly no reason at all to turn into a SKIO, but there may be some legal things that we need to think through so we don't threaten your charitable status. So it's a really good question and something that we certainly need to think through.
Yeah. No, that's great. And a question that's coming from Orkney, remote Orkney Island, wanting to do research into what the community needs are and that they can help with. And could you, Douglas, at Accelerate, point us to find consultants to fund, I think, who would come here to do research?
Yes, no, we can do that. Yep, absolutely. No, just drop us a line. Again, the best thing is to fill in that support request. A couple of sentences. It'll take you 2 minutes, and we'll get back to you with that. So that we can say, because it'll depend on the kind of nature of the work you're doing as to what source of fund would be most appropriate for that.
Yeah,
yes, happy to help with that.
That's terrific, and it leads actually into the next question, which is, what are the criteria to be eligible to apply for support from you, and would you help developing a business planning process?
Yeah, I mean, as I said in my slide, the eligibility is pretty simple. You have to be not trading. So if you're a trading business, then there are other elements of support. So I would say, please still put your support request in, and we will find a route, which might very well be us, but we will find a route to support you. But if you're trading social business, so if you're running, I don't know, a health and social care business through the church, and it's got a turnover and it's got staff and you charge people for the service, then that's not eligible. This is for non-trading enterprises. So you just have to be non-trading and you have to be based in Scotland. So that's really the 2 major criteria for this. But if you're unsure, your best bet is to just stick something in, and myself, Judith, and the team can help you to think that through and find a support package for you if it's not this.
Terrific, thank you. The next few questions I think we've already covered, and I'm conscious again, if I'm honest, of the time we have. So question regarding Dunfermline Abbey. So it's clearly got a tourist element, which is terrific, and obviously it's a normal church at the same time. Does that fit with the eligibility criteria?
I think, again, in a sense, I would say to people not to worry too much about that, because there is support for everybody. bid. So just get that bid in, and we'll worry about that. I would say if it's the core church is the charity and the tourist bit is a different legal structure, then you would be okay. But if the tourism work is happening under the auspices of the church itself, then that you'd be viewed as a trading enterprise because you're selling service to tourists and visitors and selling tickets at a ticket price, and that would be viewed as trading. So, but I really don't want to say to people there's no support for that. There is support for that. So, and one of the important things that the government wants us to do is to find people for other support programs who don't know they're there. So, you know, that's one of our outcomes. We can say to people, we don't fail if we don't support you through Accelerate, because we might find another route to support you. It sounds to me like Dunfermline Abbey would be a trading enterprise just on the face of it, but we'd need to find out a wee bit more information.
No, that's excellent. But more will be a scale. If we jump into a question surrounding the asset locked part of your presentation, the question comes from Alistair. If we had a project idea where we might take some of the profit which they make and donate it to local organisations within the church, the Scouts, the Guides, choir, to fund music, would this make them ineligible under what you mentioned as the asset lock part?
No, forgive me if that wasn't clear. What an asset lock means is the asset, the money, and your assets, but largely the money here is locked for the benefit of the community. So that's a phrase that's in charitable parlance, really. So asset locked really means so if you have a film night or a cafe or a social care business or whatever it might be, and you generate £10,000 and you keep it for the church, that's fine. Give it to the Guides, that's fine. Give it to a community group, that's all fine, as long as it's given to community support. If you give that to, if an individual comes along and says, I'll tell you what, I'll give you £10,000 donation, but what I want is 2% dividends on that 10%, and it's actually not a donation at all, it's a loan, and I want it back in 5 years' time, and I want 2% interest on it, then that's not an asset lock. So really what this is talking about, if you have a community interest company, that's not asset locked, because 35% of the profit can go to private individuals. I can't imagine that asset lock issue would be a problem for any church, so I just wouldn't worry about that. So that's what it means. It's about private individuals making profit, not the community taking the profit for. That's the whole point of this, the community taking the profit for social gain and community development.
Great. Fiona's has asked the question. They're in the middle of a business plan that's been drawn up and a major redevelopment piece of work that's going on. They're currently at planning application stage, and the big issue for them at the moment to go forward is, it would seem, is funding. She says, when we have cracked that or are facing a major rethink, maybe in a year or so, can we approach you then?
Yeah, I think we should still be here. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's absolutely fine. Like I say, it's a 3-year or a 2.5-year programme. So if this time isn't right for you just now, of course, just come when the time is ready. So yeah, absolutely.
Great, thank you. And Dan asked the question, we run a project, Granton Goes Greener. That's quite good, 3 GIS. This is not a trading project, but could be further developed to become one. We currently concentrate on distribution of clothes, rescue bread, and other support to people in our parish on limited means. We're located in an area of high social and economic deprivation. So I guess the question is, where would they go with that with you?
Well, it's just as I say, just go to our website and go to the Get Support link, and you'll find the Accelerate link there. Put it in. It sounds absolutely perfect. It sounds the absolutely perfect example that we're looking to support that kind of thing. Absolutely perfect. That's
great. I mean, there's loads of questions coming in, people. So thank you so much for your interest. It's really appreciated, and makes the time that Douglas and Judith have given us really, really worthwhile, and the setup of David. So just jumping on to a question from Margot. Can you clarify the timescale of your availability? It looks like it's been shortened at the moment, i.e. April 22 to March 22.
Well, the availability of it's a 3-year grant programme because it's been funded from the Social Enterprise Action Plan fund that the government has. So this programme will be funded year one really, although that didn't come until September, October time. So our year one will finish at the 31st of March 2022. So that's when we have loads of capacity, lots of extra days, because we're delivering 5 or 6 months, a year's programme in 5 or 6 months. So that's why I would encourage you to get in just now and get some days allocated to you while they're very generous. But there's a commitment to a year 2 and a year 3. So year 2 would finish at March 2023, and the programme itself would finish in March 2024.
Yeah, it's clearly with the interest that we've already seen that it get on with it now probably is if you're going to seek some work with you.
But I think
that's a good question.
No, sorry, carry on.
No, you go.
I was really just saying, I think I would encourage that because there's extra days, but apply when its time is right, because that's what we find sometimes, if you're not ready and you think you might be in the future, it's hard to engage when it's not the right time. So I would encourage, although I'm saying there's extra days just now, don't be too driven by that. You can apply when the time is right, and we're here for 3 years, so there's no rush.
Great. So a good question from Mary. Will the funding cover staff costs to help without possibly new ways to worship?
Sorry, say that question again, Scott.
So will the funding cover staff costs? So that now in terms, I'm guessing, Mary, what you mean is any money that is raised with the support of Accelerate, could that help cover staff costs without reaching possible new ways to worship? Because of course, myself.
Yeah, as I say, there is no money. So if you're coming looking for money, we'll have to think through securing external funding, which is absolutely fine. And that would be about developing some idea around that. So yes, of course, anything. Really pretty much anything can be funded. Buildings, staffing, equipment, minibuses. It's not about that. There's no shortage of, I can't think of anything that wouldn't be funded, but it's about the social impact. So funders will be saying, so the argument really is, we have a lot of isolated older people. We want to provide this service to support them, and by doing that, we'll start to develop something that generates income for us through donations or charging or whatever it might be, and we need a grant to start that off. Then that's what we would be looking at doing. So yeah, there absolutely would be grants out there for staff costs. None of it is easy, and there'll be rejections along the way, but yeah, absolutely there's funding there for that.
And I think that nicely answers Jane's question, which asked about launching a community hub and outreach work with a family worker to start with volunteers. And could a grant be used if the money is raised, following your advice, to be part? I think we understand that it could. I'm going to jump up to Lewis and to my friend Tommy McNeil. Tommy is doing some amazing work up in Lewis with Martin's Memorial, and he's asking this question. We're looking at developing the Shed project by providing family support services by creating the Barn, a new space for families. This is going to involve a capital project at a cost of 600 to 700k. Can you help us find funding support for this?
I think it's kind of similar to the answer to other questions is yes, but we'd need to just be careful that we would need to have an argument that barn is about because this whole point of the support programme is to support the sustainability of the core organisation, whether it's a gardening project or a church or a community cafe or whatever it might be. The core organisation needs to, so the argument is this core organisation, in this case churches, are concerned about their financial sustainability because numbers in the congregations are dropping, people's free will offering is dropping, people aren't hiring rooms anymore because of COVID. So whatever the argument might be, income's down, expenditure's up. So we need to find new ways to become sustainable enterprises. Now, our argument in Lewis is we're going to develop this barn that opens us up to the community. It gives us a facility. We're then going to have events and ceilidhs, and we're going to hire out rooms and that's going to generate money, which is going to wash the face of the barn, but some of that profit will be taken back to the church to pay the heating and lighting and so on. In that case, absolutely. You know, and if the argument actually is, well, we're financially fine and we've got £1 million in the bank, we're totally fine, and we're going to develop this barn to provide really nice services for local people, I love that, but it's not very eligible for this programme because it's about your financial sustainability. So, I mean, it's pretty loose and we can squeeze that in, but there would need to be some argument that there's going to generate some money through that barn idea. So hopefully that's clear.
That's great, and an ongoing conversation, I
Yeah.
suspect. And from Naomi, I'm charging on, sorry people, just because of time. We run a youth group as a church and we're trying to expand to cover more communities within our town. We have nearly come to the end of our 3-year funding. Is this something Accelerate can help find us to fund? And again, it's not your money, but it's obviously finding funding.
Sure. I mean, I think it's kind of the same answer to some of these other questions, is that yes, it is, but we need to be careful. This is about the financial sustainability of the organisation. So there always has to be some element of an argument that doing what you're doing helps you to generate money. And it could be anything. You know, it could be maybe in itself it doesn't generate money. So doing that youth stuff is just brilliant in itself and it doesn't generate money. But we need to think, well, actually that improves the reputation of the church. It draws people to it. People then come in, donations go up, and it secures the church. Because for the last thing we want to do is the youth project is fully funded and is going like a fair and it's wonderful and people love it, and then the church closes. You know, this is really ultimately about you as churches. You've got to think selfishly, I think, here. You know, so you've got to think that ultimately this has got to be supporting the retention of a church in your community. So I think my answer is yes to all of these, but just be careful that this is not a community and social service. It's about the financial sustainability of groups, including churches.
Fantastic. Douglas, I'm conscious of the time. We're due to finish in a couple of minutes. We've got many questions that we just couldn't fit in probably in the next 20 minutes. So I think we're going to pull stumps at 20 past I'd just like to say thank you so much to you for coming in and giving us your time. There's loads of work for us to continue on with, I suspect, which really excites me for everybody who's come in the call. Of course, we can do something like this again. I'd like to thank Judith for coming in as well, and really encourage people to follow the link that David's put up in the chat, to follow up if you're interested in working with the Accelerate programme. And I'd like to offer a little plug to an event that David's running, which is the Tri-Tank event that Father Lorenzo Labria is coming over from California, an American Episcopal priest. Tri-Tank is his baby. He said he was fed up doing Think Tank, and he's now moving into the world of Tri-Tank with his friends. And the Church of Scotland's running events the 18th to the 20th of March in Edinburgh. So keep your eyes out for that. And any questions, you can contact David about such things. But thanks again, Douglas, for coming along. This really excites me. My big motto at the moment for the church is let's get the income up, let's get the costs down, and let's make the impact of the gospel even stronger. So bless you and all the work that you're doing with your team. And I really look forward to meeting you again. I'm sure we will do over the next 3 years. But God bless you and thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye, folks. So as I say, I encourage you just to get in touch. That's the best thing to do. If you're unsure about anything, just get in touch. So thanks, folks.
Thank you. Bye.